I feel the construction industry is one of the greatest spaces. We have some of the greatest businessmen and women, and we have the greatest people in our industry. But we have this reputation that we're a bunch of felons and convicts, and we can't do anything. And I believe we can raise the construction's reputation up with doctors and lawyers and Fortune 500 businesses, because that's what these companies are. But we don't get the appreciation and the dues that we should, because as an industry, we allow it to happen.
Hey everybody, Gavin Coyle, I'm the Gaffer, back here again with a fantastic inspirational guest, a guy that we've been tracking for a while. He has a very, very successful podcast in the States, and I happened to be a guest back one day. Really enjoyed my experience with his podcast, loved his format, loved his flow and the way he just interacts with the show. And it's no doubt that he's one of the top construction podcast leaders in the States today. But not just that, he's also a very successful entrepreneur. And he's the same as the guy next door. There's no airs and graces about this guy. He says it as it is. He's natural. You love this guy. You love his energy. You love his mindset. And, you know, we're going to take a lot out of this show, but today's show is going to be a special show because I've got the podcast, but I'm the Gaffer. Ron's got his podcast, which he's going to talk about. And we're going to talk about the power of podcasting and how that can help in the construction sector and what that looks like. So without further ado, Ron Nussbaum, CEO of at Builders Comms, U.S.M.C veteran, communication software and systems leader, IBS top 20 startup, and a veteran Shark Tank finalist. Welcome to I'm The Gaffer.
Man, it is great to be here. What an entrance. Like, I am humbled. Like that was an amazing bringing me up here to stage. I think maybe we just call the show there. Like, it's good.
Yeah, well, I have to up my game a little bit now that you're on the other side of the screen. Not that I don't up my game anyway, but yes, let's get into podcasting and construction. We're going nearly 50 shows at this stage. How many shows are you up to at where you're at? And let's tell us more about your show.
We're just clicking over 200.
Love it.
We'll wrap the year up at what will it be? We'll be at about 206, I think, total at the end of the year.
Yeah, so you were telling me you're doing at least 2 podcasts a week.
Yeah, we put out 2 a week. We got the goal is not necessarily domination, but there's guys that have been doing it a lot longer than I have been. So I was like, what's the easiest way to shorten that path? Do double the work or more. On average, most people only release 1 episode a week. If that, if I do 2, the content will eventually build up, or eventually now we have a library of 200 episodes, which is a pretty impressive library, I've been told. I think it heralds in comparison to some of the guys I know that have, thousands of episodes out there, and they've been doing this for years. So I do 2 episodes a week to try to cut the gap between me and everybody else.
That is like, I do 1 a week every Tuesday morning. This show will go live. 2 a week that's a heavy set. Tell the listeners about the name of the podcast and what the podcast is about and who your target audience is, Ron, please.
Yeah, so it's Construction Champions Podcast. Our target audience is the construction space. Started out just the target audience was residential, and I've moved into the entire realm because the goal of the podcast is to have open door conversations that typically happen when the doors are closed in the construction space, and to make people feel like they're sitting at the table. And what we talk about is what it takes to be a champion in the construction space. And my goal with the podcast is to be part and to be one of the reasons that the narrative around the construction industry changes. I feel the construction industry is one of the greatest spaces. We have some of the greatest businessmen and women, and we have the greatest people in our industry. But we have this reputation that we're a bunch of felons and convicts, and we can't do anything. And I believe we can raise the construction's reputation up with doctors and lawyers and Fortune 500 businesses, because that's what these companies are. Yeah. But we don't get the appreciation and the dues that we should, because as an industry, we allow it to happen. We don't step up. We don't just say, hey, that's not true. That's not what the construction industry is. I'm here to prove that wrong. And the podcast is one of my ways to be able to put the right people in front of the entire construction industry and to be able to change that narrative.
Yeah, because the podcast gives a platform for a voice of the reason and all the good about construction.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
absolutely.
Yeah, there's charlatans and there's people that are going to take chances and that take undue risks, and they are the minority. There isn't as many people out there as what has been painted in the construction industry, especially from what I see, and that's my opinion. I don't know what your opinion is on that. Like it's not as big as maybe what it was years ago.
I think we're one of the only industries that let that 2 to 4% of bad eggs actually dictate the reputation for our entire industry.
Yeah.
Like there's bad doctors, there's bad lawyers, there's bad everything. The only other, and it's not even an industry, the only other thing I can think of that does this is like used car salesmen. Like they let that dictate their entire industry. We take a small fraction of people in our industry, and you're going to have it no matter what.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we let that narrative live. And it's like we like it. Like we're like, oh, it's the construction industry. It's just how it is. And to me, that's BS. That's not how it is. Like, I watch guys that run elite businesses, and no one will ever know the amount of skill and how good they really are just because they're in construction. So I help give those guys a platform where they can come on and tell their story. And, let's take some credit around this. Let's have some pride in that I built this business, this construction business that serves my community, provides for my family, provides for my employees. We do great work, and we're the reason why everybody's living in all these houses.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, we're just in the construction industry and it is what it is. Like, take a different approach.
Yeah. Like, I see other industries, like, say, for example, the hospitality industry, where it's so transient. People they end up stuck in a rush because they're stuck in this job. They hate the job. They're not motivated. Like, generally speaking, anybody that you meet in construction, like if you've got the work ethic and you've got the smarts, and even if you don't have the smarts but you have the work ethic, you generally will get on and have a good career in construction, maybe as opposed to hospitality, where maybe, I don't know, the chef might be the one of the top aspirations for maybe a waiter, that maybe someday they're going to be a chef, but then they turn into a chef and then they probably don't like the 12-hour days, and then they turn to drink and all the rest of it and whatever else. At least for construction, there's so many different avenues to construction that you can actually take, and that if you don't want to be a leader and you don't want the responsibility of accountability in terms of managing projects, you can still cut out a really nice salary and protection income for your house and for your family.
Absolutely. And I think that's what gets overlooked a lot of the time is everybody just thinks construction is, I have to be a field worker. Well, you don't. Like, construction businesses are like every other business. They have you can be a bookkeeper, you can be an accountant, you
100%.
can work in the office. Like, there's different trajectories. And I think we do a really bad job of marketing that. I think that's why we have such a hard time with women in construction, and because we only market the hard shit that only like 5% of us want to do. Like, I love doing that. The best memories I have is being in the field, running a crew, doing that. Like, that's the best times you will ever have in your entire life. The camaraderie,
100%.
the brotherhood.
Yeah.
But that's not what construction really is. Like, that's just the doing part of construction. We lose sight of everything that has to happen for those guys to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's the career path for anybody, no matter where you come from, what your background is you can end up in construction and carve out in a fantastic career, if not carve out leading your way into your own entrepreneur journey. And 100%. It's pretty amazing the skill set that you can learn on the site. Like, I am literally high school diploma, 4 years in the Marine Corps, toured Iraq, landed on a job site, had never swung a hammer in construction. I worked on cars prior, showed up on a job site, and over a 10-year period, I went from running the jackhammer to running the company.
Brilliant.
And I had a willingness to learn. Everybody around me seemed like they had construction management degrees, and I did not. So I just had a chip on my shoulder that I needed to work. And I just outworked everybody. And here's the thing, is like, that's a testament that anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Like, anybody can show up. And if you're willing to outwork everybody around you, it doesn't matter where you came from and what you've done, you can succeed in construction, because construction is one of those industries that pays the ones that want to get it done and
100%.
get the job done. There's a lot of performance based. It can be a problem with some of the stuff we do. But at the end of the day, performance pays.
And in this day and age, there's a complete challenge between a massive amount of productivity required and a lack of people in the market to deliver the productivity that's needed to be done to get these jobs done globally. And we all know that. So there's a challenge there to try and attract people. And I do feel that there's a brand issue with construction globally, that it's not branded properly to attract the younger people into the industry. And, you know, maybe the tech companies do a really good job of sort of, you know, giving this gold medal look of, you know, come over to us. We're much nicer people and we'll have lovely Starbucks inside the building for you and a little gym and stuff like that. But, you know, when you come down to it, you know, a lot of these people are brought into an environment where they don't want you to leave that environment. That's why there's a Starbucks in the building. That's why there's a gym in the building. That's why they were nearly getting to WeWork, to putting beds in the building, you know, as opposed to construction, where you just like, you know, if you want to turn up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're willing to get in and get a bit of concrete done and leave in the afternoon and have some family time, that's okay with us as long as the job is done. If you want to just put in as many hours you want to get in and get the job done and get paid more money, that's okay as well. You know, it's more about the graft as opposed to, you know, all these nice little comforts. But going back to it, how do we brand that? And this probably leads really well into the podcast industry in regards to what you're doing and how podcasting and construction, you know, is a great mix to get out to the audience out there and to try and maybe even in itself attract people.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I've been saying it for a little bit now, is that the construction industry doesn't have a employment and hiring problem. It has a marketing problem, which branding's such a better word. That's why, you're the expert at this stuff. And I'm just Ron Nussbaum over here. But you're so right. Like, it's construction it's not just perform, like, they're projects. We know the outcomes we're trying to create. Yeah. And it's like, just get it done. Like, that's why I used to tell guys is like, do I want you working 18-hour days? No. If you want to work 3 18-hour days and have the rest of the week off, I guess then do that. Yeah. I wouldn't personally. I would not. Like, but I remember when I was 25 years old, I would do it. So, like, there's this give and take, and leadership has to have an understanding that they're not that same age anymore. And these guys, that's what they want to do. And the environment caters to that. Let them rock and roll. And we used to have guys that would work 3-4 day weeks and make tons of money just because they wrapped their projects up early. Yeah. Like, because that's what it's about. It's just about getting a job done. Like, when you're at Facebook or you're at Google or whatever, these companies that have all this stuff that they're trying to keep you in there, it's because there's like no end to the project. Like, there's like, you could work 18-hour days for the rest of your life and never accomplish anything, I guess. Yeah. But like, there's this tangible thing about construction. And there's this camaraderie that I preach. Like, you won't find that in any other business. Like, you spend some time around a construction business, those people will go to war for you. Like, they become family, and not just family in the sense of like, oh, we all get along, as in like, if you're out at 3:00 in the morning and something goes wrong, these are the people that will show up and fix it. Yeah. Or they're probably with you, ready to fix it. Yeah. So
no, I don't want to give the tech industry in particular a bad run of it, but let's just call it corporate, the corporate world, because there's kind of not. I know there's PLC companies that own very large construction companies and do a fantastic job of it. But there is definitely a institutionalized approach to the workplace, and then there's the kind of dynamic approach where, look, you can institutionalize this all you want, but the job has to get done. So,
that's the truth, because you don't see you've seen, like, there's corporate construction companies, but you go walk around the job sites, you go talk to people. It's not like it might look corporate, it might feel corporate, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what you said. Is there's a job that has to get done, and there's typically only one way to get that job done, and that's to just do it and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and have the right people around you that you can trust to do it or execute it. Whereas in some of these corporate environments, it's a sort of a pyramid scheme where, there's the leader and then there's the leaders, and it's kind of like pushing down on the workforce. And, if you join our little institution or our cult, we will make you into this massive person that you're going to be the best thing, and we're going to have you flying all over the world, and you're just going to be a superstar. And we're actually going to call you a superstar because we've come up with these new names for people. So we're going to call you a champion, and we're going to call her the leader of leaders or whatever. So all these massive titles. Like, Jesus Christ. Honestly, whereas in construction it is like, get the bloody shovel. Get in here now.
Like, here's where the branding comes in as being like raw. It's going to be hard. Like, I guess, like, that's just what it is. And we have a job to do. The cream will rise to the top. Like, there is no.
Oh yeah, there's no height.
There is no, like. I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. It's like the one thing that you don't see a lot of in construction businesses is politics. Like, and I think you think of corporate, like there's all these politics of who knows who and what's happening and how do you get promoted and this and
Yeah.
that. And you don't really see, at least in my lifespan of through this, is like you don't see a lot of that because it's typically the performers that are at the top. And there's really not a whole lot of ass kissing that comes out of guys and girls that are top performers. Like they just get the job done. So they're not there to smooze anybody. The people that are there to smooze, they end up just washing out because they're not a fit for that. And
I've definitely seen that, Ron. I love the way you've brought that in because I've definitely seen people put on a persona of somebody that they're not in order to think that they're going to get to the place that they need to get to. And that's in the construction world, you get unraveled very quick. Like within 24 months, you'll be found out. You might not be found out in the first 6 months. But I can tell you this, if you want a leveler, if you want an industry that levels it out, construction levels it out fairly quick. And I don't know how many times I've had this conversation, but like you could walk on a construction site and you basically see the landscape of the country in front of you in terms of different religions, different mentalities, different races, everybody just all into one condensed area, having their own sort of nuances of who they are as people. And you could nearly just sort of see the political landscape in front of you of who your country is and what that country is, what the culture of that country is. And it's there's no other industry that does that in my mind.
And what's amazing is they're all working together towards an end objective and getting the job done. Like most people would say that's impossible to do that, but it's not. It's really not. Like it's just, you have to take all the BS out of it and just let people thrive. And we in construction, that's why, like when I say that at the beginning, where it's like anybody can thrive in construction if you want to. Like you can just show up and just do your absolute best and learn every day and grow, and you can have an amazing career without going to college or without going to a trade school. And you just learn. You're going to start at the bottom. I started at the bottom and I just keep working and I just keep showing up and I keep trying to do what I feel is best for the construction industry going forward. And it's an amazing thing that I think that should be the branding behind the construction industries. Like we have these job sites that are a complete melting pot of the word, and there's so much opportunity, but what is the branding behind that? Is there's a bunch of convicts working out on these job sites that can't get employed anywhere else. I would say it's not the opposite. I would say any company, Facebook, Meta, any of these it doesn't even have to be tech. Any company would be lucky to have somebody off a job site working in their business, because I'm going to tell you that's somebody that when it gets hard, when stuff needs to happen, will be the top performer in your company. And that should be the reputation around it. It shouldn't be the narrative that maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago was true. It's not true today. Like that's not the narrative around the construction industry.
So tell me then, seeing as you have some keys to success and your podcast is doing really well, talk to me about the perspective of I'm Mr. Cladding construction company based in Massachusetts, and I've got 200 people or maybe got 100 people working for me. Why should I look at podcasting as a brand exercise to get ahead of my competition, who maybe there's some serious competitors in my region? There might be 4 or 5 other cladding companies that I'm competing against. And, rather than spending this money with this digital marketing agency on SEO and PPC, why should I be looking at podcasting?
Oh man, I love this question about if you own a construction company, why you should have a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, that is an amazing question. Why not? Why would you not want to be the expert in your area or nationally? Like I would,
or internationally.
What was that?
Or internationally.
Or internationally. I would set the main focus on whatever your specialty is. What do you do in Massachusetts?
So if I'm Mr. Cladding Company, Mr. Cladding.com, I don't know, whatever. As a CEO, how do I pull this together? What is the sort of what is the strategy document what's the first page in that strategy document going to be? Why do I put podcasting first over and above digital marketing and all these gurus who, tell me that they're going to get me on page one of Google as soon as somebody puts in cladding and, my local area, wherever that is? Why should podcasting be the one that I take the investment on?
The podcasting will get you to page one on Google. Just so everybody, it's one of the greatest SEO things you can do because of the amount of backlinks that are created for your business based on where all you upload the podcast. I would argue the point that the main reason is you become that guru. Those gurus that are telling you what to do, you become that for your customers. So think about it. If whatever you're doing and you have a homeowner that's on the fence or something or has some hard questions or isn't quite sure, and you're like, you need to go listen to episode 15 and 28 of my podcast where I talk about that, or I interviewed somebody and we had a conversation around that. It allows you to become not just the expert. It allows you to validate that you're the expert. Like here, not only I'm so good at this, like I also have a podcast where I talk about it, or we interview other people about this. And if you're going to do interviews, I would do them probably with local business owners that are relevant to your network that you can sit down and have an hour-long conversation with, build a relationship, and they can become a referral partner from
and it's an indirect sale. I suppose I never looked at it that way. My main purpose of the I'm the Gaffer was basically to try and give a voice to the underdog and to try and help them out, because I see massive risk and I wasn't able to. I was trying to look at my price point in our business, our core business, just couldn't meet the small to medium enterprise market, and we couldn't meet them at the price point. So we said, look, why don't we do a podcast? And at least with the podcasts, we can build up authority of our other brand and our other brands, but at the same time, we're giving something back to the construction community. But as it turns out, I've ended up with a lot of really good friends, no more than yourself, in terms of a network. And it's also allowed a frictionless conversation, if it needed to happen, about how I could do business with you or you could do business with me or whatever else. And it wasn't a case of shoving a brochure down the door or putting a thumbnail in front of somebody's face with, 10% off if you buy today type of a scenario.
Well, that's what happens is you build relationships, and people build relationships with you when you're not even knowing it. I get on calls all the time where people are like, oh, I've been listening to your podcast and I feel like I know you. And it's like, well, like those are the relationships you can't, there's no other way to cultivate that. And to think about when you're wanting to learn, like get in front of your customers, like, what if they Google, like, what happens when I do a kitchen renovation in the middle of winter in Massachusetts? And here's your podcast episode on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this guy's in Massachusetts, like this guy's in my area. You mean I can get the guy that's on the podcast to come do my kitchen?
Yeah.
Like there becomes this connection to you that you can't get any way else. Like there's no other way to build that up before somebody even meets you.
Yeah, I think you need to. I think that basically what we're talking about is authority. That you're building your authority, your brand authority of this is why I'm better than everybody else. But I suppose there's so many people out there that believe, and maybe rightly so believe, that they are a better authority in the business that they operate in. But it's very hollow halls that these people are singing in. They're not getting out to a wider audience, and they, maybe might be, I don't know, maybe they might be a little bit humble in terms of they're not one of these people that shouts in the top, and they're maybe not as extrovert. And they probably think that because if you're going to go down the podcast route, you need to be a bit of a crazy dude with a bit of an extrovert.
I think that's one of the problems with our industry is that we are very humble. We're very, it's just that's how it is, and I would challenge that.
Go for it.
I would just challenge that and say, why not? Like, I ended up with a podcast because I was in a room with some guys that were not going to take no as an answer. Like the excuse I used to use was, I hate my voice and that's really not me. And they were not going to accept that because they're like, you have the network, you have the passion. Like, you need to do this. Like, the construction industry deserves you doing this.
Yeah.
And I'll go one step further for everybody listening out there that's thinking about doing this is like, that would so excite me if we started having construction business owners start their own podcasts.
Yeah.
And I would invite anybody that wants to do that can come on my podcast because I think that's how we start to change the narrative. The
100%.
more of us that are talking, it's not, everybody thinks podcasts are just like, oh, there's so many of them out there. Think about this. Construction is one of the biggest industries in the world.
Yeah.
And construction podcasts are one of the smallest segments of podcasts.
Yeah.
How is that a flooded market?
It's not. I can tell you this. We started in January of this year, 2023. 2024 or 2024. Oh my God, we're heading into 2025.
We're just days away.
Jesus. So we're over 1 million viewers in that space of time on around 50 episodes. And like, you weren't totally shocked when I showed you those stats.
No.
I was shocked. I have to say, I was like, Jesus, it just goes to show you how little amount of podcasts that are making the difference in the construction industry are out there. And there is, I don't know what the figure is, but I do know like there's something like over 300, I don't know the exact figure, something like over 300,000 podcasts that are in circulation, shall we say, but not active. There's only a very tiny amount of podcasts that actually, follow through. And that's exactly
here's the stat I got yesterday was that 90% of podcasts don't make it past the third episode. And then 80% of those don't make it past the 8th episode.
Wow. And why do you think that? Give me your view on that. I have
I don't think people have a passion or the discipline to do it. I think they started it because they wanted to hear themselves talk or something. And they didn't have any passion behind what they were going to do because podcasting isn't easy.
Yeah.
It's a cost. Like that's just what it is. And you got to be disciplined in the systems to be able to do it consistently. And I think that's what people lack, is they're not talking about something that they're passionate about. So they just say, oh, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah. I think you're being nice, because I think really what you're saying is I'm Irish, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. Ego. Some people get involved in it because of ego, and ego in any shape or form is a cancer. I don't care what anyone says. Like, you'll get away with it for so long, but then, substance takes over ego, and people soon find out. And you're right, that it just falls apart. But like, if I am Mr. Cladding company, and I do genuinely have a fear or some sort of a bias or some sort of a barrier to doing a podcast, you can bring in a host. Like, I've seen this where, you can employ a host to come in and host the show for you. I'm not saying that we're plugging me or you to go and do a host for a construction podcast.
I would have them as a guest on my podcast. I invite any builders, any kind. I'm always excited when I get to talk to people that are actively building a construction business. But I'm not going to host your podcast for you.
No, because we don't have time. But they can get, there is people out there that will host or can facilitate the hosting of.
They probably have somebody in their company that would love to do it.
Yeah, 100%. There's always, especially in the digital age of where we're at with social media, like the young people, the young generation have got no fear with this type of standing in front of a camera or whatever else.
And it's how they consume all that. Like, you got to think of how the word is turning, and how podcasts have become the main. When you look at YouTube, and podcasts are starting to become the main way people take in information. Yeah, you're going to have somebody in your company that would be excited about this and would want to be the hero behind it, that will help bring this to fruition. And you can probably get it.
The good thing about, sorry to cut across you, Ron, but the interesting thing about that this conversation is as well, they've got the stage, they've got the props, they've got the population, they've got the topics, they've got everything. They've got the whole gamut of everything you need to put together, a really insightful, engaging podcast. Imagine actually setting up a podcast within a construction environment and sort of pulling in the supervisor and say, hey, come over here. I want to sit down on the couch, and you have a couch on the floor with, construction activities going on in the background somewhere or whatever else. And you're sitting down and say, okay, what are you doing today? What's happening today? Give us an idea of what your normal day is, blah, blah, blah. What's your challenges? Okay, get lost, get back to work, bring over the other guy, sit him down. It's like, okay, now we're going into the office. Let's go into the office. Okay, now we're going to meet a client. It doesn't have to be, sort of charlatan focused in terms of these people that are on YouTube or YouTuber type, influencer. We're not getting there. What we're getting to is actual substance of, by the way, here's my business in a live format that you can see, that's tangible, that that I'm not a bullshitter, and that we get the job done, and we get it done safely, on time, and on budget.
I think about it all the time. I wish I was doing it when I was working in construction. Like, there's so many times where I'm just like, I think back and I'm like, man, that would have been such a great podcast. Like, because stuff happens, and the stuff that happens is your customers' concerns. And if you just get on there and you just talk about it and you air it out and you say, yeah, hey, this is what happened. Yeah. We opened it up. It wasn't perfect. This is how we overcame it. You have that forever. And you do it in real time. So then you still have the raw emotions of it happening, what happened. You can tell the story, and it's very authentic. Yeah. It's not like it's why I don't relive, I don't do any relive content. I don't go back and tell stories of how it used to be or stuff that had happened, because I'm at a different place and I don't have the emotions and the everything around that anymore. So all I can talk about is what's happening right now. Like, what do I feel right now? And that creates authenticity out of that. I can talk about what it used to be like. It just doesn't come across the same. So
I know
guys have an amazing opportunity to start doing this right now. Why they're still building their businesses. And it's something that would be forever with your business.
100%. Yeah.
Forever.
It's in your library. Yeah. So with that, tell us more about your business and what your main core business is, because this is more your hobby and your passion. But how do you live? How do you make money?
Yeah. So the podcast it has become a passion project for me. One of my favorite things I do. But what I do is I still serve the construction industry. And after all my time in construction, I got tired of all the communication issues and all the problems with the CRMs and Slack and WhatsApp and Gmail, Microsoft Teams. There's all these different ways we use to communicate, and they all fall short when it comes to construction. So what I ended up doing was I built a piece of software that is now called Builder Comms, that is a communication platform for the construction industry. And we not only help with software, we help with it's not consulting. We walk alongside you. Like, one of the hardest parts, what I found with software, is implementation in construction. So we take a different approach to it. Instead of you just show up and buy our product and we see you later, is we have the ability to help implement this into your business and continue to set you up for success. Like, that's what we do. Is our software has now become customizable. So we don't just give you a solution. We help you build the solution for your company. And then you have it. It's yours. And then you have us to help you continue to implement that and get past day 0, day 10, day 90 to where our software becomes just part of how you guys do business every day. So that's what I do now. Is my main focus in life right now is to fix communication in construction, so it's never a problem again. So we never hear another customer ever say, I loved everything about it, but man, their communication sucked. And I think we can fix that.
So is that that's internal communication, but also external communication? So
it's different for every company. We do half of our customers, we're doing stuff for them purely internally. And the other half, it's all customer facing. We know where those breakdowns lie. If you look at your business, you know where you're losing that money. Project delays, cost overruns, lost opportunity, all stems from miscommunication. Now, is that happening with your customer, or is that happening internally with your team? That's something we can help figure out, but chances are, if you're listening to this, you know where it's happening. And what we can do is we can come in and we have a system that you can use off the shelf if you're not ready to just have your own system. So we offer that. But for a lot of the companies, they're not looking to just have another piece of software. Like, they're not looking to have another Slack. Even though it's built for the construction industry, they want something that's theirs, that has their branding on it, that they own the data. That's a big thing these days. It's like, who owns the data? Because with all these other programs, you don't. We can put you in a position where you do. So we do it. We just kind of do it all when it comes to that. Like, it's really about fixing a problem within the industry. And then we have broadened our horizons on what does that solution look like? Because I truly believe in meeting your customer where they are. And that's what we try to do. Like, I am a status quo challenger, but I want to meet you where you're at. And then we're going to challenge the status quo on how we think this should be done, especially within construction.
Yeah.
And we're going to set you up for success. And then you're still going to be able to call us. Like, I heard it from a guy yesterday, was they're using Teams. And he's like, I can never get anybody from Teams to ever respond to anything. And I'm like, well, good luck with that. Like, you're talking to me and you're not even my customer. Like, that should show you something right there.
Yeah. So it's not just a chat forum. I take it there's sort of metrics that measure the conversation in terms of the priority of the level of conversation and where that conversation needs to be steered to and what direction that should go in, as opposed to just floating into the cloud space.
Yeah, I like to say we work as air traffic control for communication. Our software helps direct the communication where it needs to go just by channels, as well as we have all kinds of different things that we can do. It's why it becomes, what do you need for your company? Like, we have our core base of like, this is what works. Now, do you need more than that? Do you need it to do this? And we have the capacity to be able to do that. Like, do we need AI integrations? Do you want to be able to come in here and ask any question and get an answer through AI to be able to know what's happening within your company, or pull any kind of data, or have automations in there that are able to just answer questions? Or my favorite is being able to have a way to decipher construction lingo, because we use a lot of lingo, and we're working on a piece that can be added in there, especially for a homeowner, we'll decipher that for them. That would say, this is what this means in layman's terms, because people don't want to feel stupid. They don't want to say, I don't know what that means. And then that leads to problems. So if we create this environment where we know everything that's being said and we can translate that into what anybody can understand, we reduce these pain points. 35% of projects end in a dispute. I think we can get that down for builder comms users to under 5.
Wow.
I mean, that seems like everybody's like, it's kind of a stretch. And I'm like, but let's think about it. Like, if we fix the communication breakdowns within somebody's company, what is there to be in a dispute about? Because that's where all the disputes happen, is somebody doesn't understand something that was said, or it's not recorded. There's no documentation. If there's documentation and it's black and white and we have the information, it's not on somebody's personal cell phone and you have no idea. If we actually have the information, we can way lower the amount of disputes.
Mm-hmm. So, as you're talking there, what I'm thinking of is there's a direct link between a lack of communication and a problem with the culture of the organization. So I'm a strong believer that if you can fix the communication side of things, you're actually heading in the right direction to have your defined culture and a healthy culture within the business, because through communication, then you're getting to a stage where there's commonality of discussion, there's commonality of problem solving, there's commonality of, well, what's the next steps, so that there isn't this sort of gray area of, isolation and people just making up their own minds of what they think is the right thing to do, rather than having a collective concept of what is the right thing to do by the company and by the standard and by the client. And I think that's really powerful if you can sort of pull in all of that into one sort of platform. It's a no-brainer.
I believe it is. I truly believe This is one of the biggest sticking points for the construction industry. It's one of the reasons we have some of the reputation issues we have. It's why I decided to stop working in construction and actually go fix this. Like, it would be much easier for me to just be moving right along in my construction career and doing all of that than going out and completely trying to revolutionize how we do something in the industry. But I'm that passionate about moving the construction industry forward. And that's why the podcast got born out of all of this. And it truly is like, let's just go make a huge difference. Like, we can. Well done. There's an opportunity here, and let's do it.
I love it. So let me do the curveball questions, because I'm the Gaffer likes to do some curveball questions. Knowing what you know now, Mr. Ron Nussbaum, what would you do different? And it doesn't have to be business related. It can be anything related. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different?
I would have documented every part of my entire life. From like when I went into the Marine Corps through working in construction, I would have not been on social media. I would have been on there. I would have been documenting everything. I would have been building authority in who Ron Nussbaum is 20 years ago when everything just started.
Wow. What is your favorite holiday destination and why?
What was that again?
Your favorite holiday destination?
Me and my wife like to go to Punta Cana in Dominican Republic. We have a resort that we like to stay at down there. It's the first place I ever traveled internationally, except for Iraq. It's the first place I went on. It truly is just like the pit. Like, the first time I stood there and looked at and I live by the ocean, but there's just something about it there is that it's just like the pictures. Like, it's so real. Like, it's amazing. It's beautiful. So
lovely.
We love to go there.
Love it. I love it. Something of interest about you that not many people would resonate about Ron Nussbaum. Something that not, be careful now, Ron. Be very careful.
I really like cars, and cars are not about status to me. Like, cars it's like, that's kind of a passion. I grew up working on cars. So like, when I talk about having hot rods and Lamborghinis and this kind of stuff, it's like not because I think like that's what you should have. Like, I just think that like that's fun to me. Like, I love cars. Like, I don't think there's a number that you could possibly have that would say you have too many of them. And I don't think I've ever said that on a podcast. So there you go. You got something that is brand new, a nugget that no one knows.
Jay Leno, isn't it, that has his garage? Yeah. Oh my God. And I'd say if you asked him, he would extend that garage further and further if he could.
My dad calls it a disease. He's like, it's just a disease. Like, there's just something about it. Like, some people just have it. Like, some people just love that, everything about that. And I do. I think it's fun.
Yeah, no, I get that totally. A favorite book or movie?
Book or movie? Man, books is an endless list. I can't give you just one.
Okay, go for two.
I'll give you my top 3 books that everybody should read.
Go for it.
Traction by Gino Wickman. The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And the book on personal excellence and discipline by Andy Frisella.
Wow.
Those 3 books will absolutely change your life.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Listen, Ron, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? I'm sure if people want to be a guest, they can reach out to you as well. But in terms of the business, Buildcom as well. Tell us how could they do
I
it?
am not hard to find. Neither is Construction Champions Podcast or Builder Comms. You can find us on all social medias. You can find me there or at buildercoms.com. The podcast is on there as well.
Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're a gentleman. I really enjoyed today's chat, and definitely come back to us again in the future on the podcast. You're an amazing superstar in the area of construction, and especially for the podcast. So keep doing what you're doing. We love it, and we'll talk to you again in the future.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.